I'm Wine, and somewhere in America right now, somebody is spending a 1970s Eagle quarter that collectors would instantly pull out of circulation. Most people see old quarters as nothing more than spare change, but hidden among millions of ordinary coins are rare dates, high-grade survivors, and forgotten pieces of American history that have quietly become collectible treasures. And today, we're stepping into the 1970s. This is part 3 of our journey through American coins by decade. We already explored the 1990s and the 1980s, but now we're entering a completely different America. Muscle cars, disco music, economic struggles, Cold War tension, and dramatic change across the country. And through all of it, these quarters kept moving from hand to hand. What makes the 1970s fascinating for collectors is this. Most people never expected these coins to matter someday. They were used heavily, dropped into vending machines, left in tip jars, spent at arcades and gas stations. That's exactly why finding beautiful examples today can be surprisingly difficult. So before we begin, check your pocket change tonight, because one tiny date could tell a much bigger story.
Let's start with a 1970 Washington Eagle quarter. Visually, it still carried the same familiar design Americans had known for decades. George Washington on the front, the proud eagle on the reverse. Strong, simple, instantly recognizable. But 1970 America felt very different from the decades before it. The Vietnam War was still ongoing. The country was politically divided, yet everyday life continued, and coins like these quietly passed through millions of ordinary moments in American history. That's what collectors love. Coins are physical survivors of another era. Most circulated 1970 quarters are still worth face value today, but high-grade uncirculated examples with original mint luster can sell for significantly more depending on condition, especially coins graded MS66 or higher. And proof versions from San Francisco with deep mirror surfaces are highly collectible when preserved properly. But here's where things get interesting. Many collectors specifically search for strong strikes and clean surfaces because quarters from the 1970s were often poorly preserved after leaving the mint. That means condition matters massively. One scratch can completely change value. And let me ask you something. How many old quarters have you spent in your life without checking the date first? Probably more than you realize. Now, let's move to the 1972 quarter. This coin exists during one of the most turbulent economic periods in modern American history. Inflation was beginning to rise, the country was changing socially and culturally, yet the Washington quarter remained one of the most trusted and heavily used coins in circulation. That heavy use is exactly why flawless examples became difficult to find later. Most 1972 quarters show wear, dull surfaces, or contact marks from decades of circulation. But occasionally, collectors discover one that looks almost untouched, and those are the coins that command attention. The 1972 quarter also becomes exciting because of era varieties. Certain double dies and off-center strikes from the era have become highly collectible. That's why experienced collectors inspect every detail carefully: date, lettering, mint mark, strike quality. Even tiny mistakes made during production can turn ordinary coins into something rare. And here's something beginners often miss. If you see an S mint mark, the coin came from San Francisco. A D means Denver. No mint mark means Philadelphia. Those tiny letters are one of the first things serious collectors check. Now let's talk about the 1973 Washington quarter. By this point, America was going through massive cultural change. Music, television, fashion, everything looked different than just 10 years earlier. But the quarter stayed almost exactly the same. And there's something strangely emotional about that. While the country evolved rapidly, This small eagle coin remained a constant part of American life. People carried it everywhere: school cafeterias, movie theaters, road trips, phone booths. That emotional connection is why coin collecting feels personal. These coins aren't just currency anymore. They're memories frozen in metal. Most circulated 1973 quarters remain affordable, but high-end mint state examples with strong eye appeal can still sell for impressive premiums. Proof versions from San Francisco are especially prized for their sharp details and reflective finish. But here's one of the biggest mistakes new collectors make. They clean their coins. Never clean old coins. A polished coin might look shiny to beginners, but collectors usually want original, untouched surfaces. Cleaning can permanently destroy value in seconds. That mistake has ruined countless collectible coins.
Now let's move into the 1974 quarter. This coin circulated during a difficult period in American history: the oil crisis, inflation, and political distrust after Watergate. Yet, despite everything happening nationally, these quarters continued moving quietly through everyday American life. That contrast makes them fascinating historical artifacts today. Most people never stop to think where a coin has been, how many pockets it traveled through, how many cities it passed. That mystery is part of what makes coin collecting addictive. For the 1974 quarter, collectors often look for strong strike quality because weaker strikes were common during this era. And rare mint errors can dramatically increase value depending on condition and rarity. That's why knowledge matters more than luck.
Now let's move into the 1974 quarter. This coin circulated during a difficult period in American history: the oil crisis, inflation, and political distrust after Watergate. Yet despite everything happening nationally, these quarters continued moving quietly through everyday American life. That contrast makes them fascinating historical artifacts today. Most people never stop to think where a coin has been, how many pockets it traveled through, how many cities it passed. That mystery is part of what makes coin collecting addictive. For the 1974 quarter, collectors often look for strong strike quality because weaker strikes were common during this era. And rare mint errors can dramatically increase value depending on condition and rarity. That's why knowledge matters more than luck. Finally, we arrive at the 1979 Washington Eagle Quarter. And this coin feels important for a reason. The 1970s were ending. America was preparing for a completely different decade ahead. Technology was changing. Culture was shifting. But this quarter still carried the same eagle reverse Americans had trusted for generations. That consistency matters historically, because only 20 years later, the State Quarters program would completely transform the design Americans carried every day. So when collectors look at a 1979 Eagle Quarter today, they're seeing the final era before modern quarter collecting exploded nationwide. Most circulated examples remain common, but mint state coins with minimal wear can still sell for strong premiums depending on grade. And the truth is, most didn't survive in perfect condition. That's the thing people misunderstand about rarity. Old doesn't automatically mean valuable. Condition matters, survival matters, collector demand matters. And sometimes the coins nobody saved become the hardest ones to find decades later.